But when her first love reappeared, all the surprises were canceled. She had clearly said she hated him the most, the first love who dumped her when her family went bankrupt. Yet between him and me, she still chose him. "Victoria, if you leave with him, we're getting a divorce." Faced with my plea, Victoria scoffed. "You're nothing but a dog I sponsored, only fit to stay at home and wag your tail obediently." But later, when she was once again cheated out of her money and heart by that same first love, she begged me to take her back and forgive her. I swirled the wine in my glass, looking down on her. "Miss Vance, why don't you show me how to wag your tail?" Chapter 1. On our third wedding anniversary, Victoria told me early in the morning that she had a surprise for me. After work, she took me to a high-end restaurant. She had booked the entire place and prepared a candlelight dinner. "I hope we can be this happy forever." She smiled, making a wish to me as she handed me a fine box. A luxurious watch lay quietly inside. I took it out carefully, about to put it on. Just then, a waiter carrying red wine walked by and accidentally bumped my hand, knocking the watch to the floor in an instant. The wine also spilled all over Victoria's white dress. Victoria had always been good-tempered, but when she heard the waiter's apology, her expression turned to panic. Before I could say a word, Victoria started yelling at him. "You're so clumsy, can you afford to pay for this dress and the watch? Look at you, you look pathetic. You can't even do a simple job properly. What are you good for? You might as well just quit, get out of my sight. I don't want to see you again." The male waiter kept his head down without a word, his face flushed crimson. His white shirt was also stained with wine, which seemed to match Victoria's white dress. I tried to calm Victoria down, saying it wasn't his fault, that it was an accident. But Victoria insisted the waiter wasn't being careful, and demanded the manager fire him. Hearing this, the waiter looked up at Victoria in shock, biting his lips so hard it turned white. Then, as if venting his anger, he slammed the wine tray onto the table and walked away. But I froze. His determined silhouette looked exactly like the man I had seen 3 days ago at Victoria's class reunion. 3 days earlier, Victoria had said she was going to a class reunion. She was in a good mood then, even giving me a kiss before she left and telling me not to forget to pick her up. But the next call I got was from one of her worried classmates. "I'm so sorry, Sincere. It's our fault. Vicky drank so much she was hospitalized with stomach bleeding. You should come quickly." When I rushed to the hospital, I saw a man in a white shirt holding Victoria's hand by the bedside, whispering something to her. When she saw me, Victoria gave the man a look and he left without a word, quite smoothly. I asked her what happened, why she had drunk so much. Victoria gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and smiled at me. "I was just so happy to see my classmates that I drank a little too much." Later, it was one of her classmates who told me the whole story. The man I saw at the hospital that day was named Ethan Rhodes. He and Victoria were indeed close. He was her first love from college. They had been together for 4 years before Ethan went abroad, which led to their breakup. For the next 4 years, there was no word from him. On the day of the reunion, Ethan had shown up, looking like he'd traveled a long way, and went straight for Victoria. He said something to her, and after she slapped him, she started drinking non-stop. Ethan just stayed by her side in silence. For every drink Victoria had, Ethan had one too. The other classmates were stunned by the scene and didn't dare to say a word. Finally, someone couldn't watch anymore and tried to stop her, but as soon as Victoria put down her glass, she coughed up blood. It was Ethan who carried her all the way to the hospital. Our romantic candlelight dinner ended abruptly. In the car, I noticed Victoria's mood had been low ever since the incident, which confirmed my suspicions. I spoke softly. "That man just now. Was that Ethan?" After a long pause, I heard her reply. "Yes." Victoria paused again, then added, "Sincere, I hate him." But I was still uneasy. Thinking about her strong reaction earlier, I decided to ask, "Do you still love Ethan?" As I said the words, my heart felt like it was being torn apart by an invisible hand. Chapter 2. Victoria shook her head. "Sincere, don't be silly. That's all in the past. You're the only one in my heart now. Back then, Ethan saw my family was going bankrupt and broke up with me without a second thought, leaving me all alone. For a scoundrel like that, I'll curse him every time I see him. Making him lose his job is letting him off easy." As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. I knew that Victoria's family company had faced a crisis back then. I was the one who stood by her step by step, pulling the company back from the brink of collapse and building it into what it is today. Only the two of us understood the hardships we went through. My heart ached for her. I reached out with one hand and gently stroked her head. "Watch out," Victoria screamed. A slender figure was blocking the entrance to our villa. I slammed on the brakes, the screeching sound filling the air. Almost simultaneously, Victoria bolted from the car. From inside the car, I watched her run to Ethan and give him a hard shove. Ethan stumbled and was about to fall. Victoria was cursing at him, but she couldn't stop herself from reaching out to steady him. The moment she reached for him, Ethan pulled her into his arms. They held each other tightly. Under the streetlight, the red wine stain on Victoria's white dress looked like a blooming rose. I got out of the car and called her name. As if waking from a dream, Victoria pushed Ethan away and, without a word, pulled me back to the house. Before we went inside, I glanced back. Ethan was still standing there, showing no intention of leaving. Once we were home, Victoria said she was tired and told me to take a shower first. But when I came out, I couldn't find her in the bedroom. She was standing motionless on the balcony, her eyes fixed on Ethan outside. I frowned. When I walked up beside her, she didn't even notice. "Why don't we invite him in for a drink?" My voice startled her, and she flinched. She shook her head repeatedly. "Sincere, I'm just watching a fool. Look at him, isn't he pathetic?" Victoria smiled, but it was uglier than tears. Without another glance, she turned and went back into the room. Before going to bed, I also looked out the window. Ethan was still standing there. That night, a light rain began to fall. Victoria and I lay back to back, unable to sleep for a long time. As the rain grew heavier, so did the turmoil in my heart. The space beside me shifted. Victoria had sat up. Seeing no reaction from me, she waited a moment, then finally rushed out the door. Victoria returned, holding an umbrella over a drenched Ethan. I had been waiting on the sofa for a long time. They saw me the moment they walked in. Ethan saw me and immediately turned to leave, but Victoria gripped his arm tightly. "Sincere, Suppressing the emotions churning inside me, I spoke in a low voice. "Aren't you going to tell him to get lost?" Victoria's hand suddenly dropped, and Ethan turned and disappeared into the rain. "Sincere, I'm sorry. Just give me some time. I'll handle this to your satisfaction." Victoria picked up the umbrella from the floor and chased after him without a backward glance. I rubbed my throbbing temples, but my mind was crystal clear. Memories of our past flashed before my eyes. I had always believed that after 3 years together, Victoria and I were deeply in love. Now it seemed it was all just my one-sided wishful thinking. I waited a whole day but heard nothing from Victoria. Just before the end of the workday, my secretary, Rebecca Jones, rushed in, crying. "Mr. Clark, Ms. Vance brought a man in and said he's replacing me. I can't lose this job. My mom is in the emergency room, and I need my salary to save her. I already had a bad feeling." I went out to see what was happening. Sure enough, it was Victoria, personally handling Ethan's onboarding. She was smiling as she handed a document to him. Suddenly, I grabbed her hand. The panic in Victoria's eyes lasted only a second before it was replaced by a smile. She casually waved over another person to handle the onboarding and pulled me into her office. "You didn't come home at all last night. Where were you?" Victoria's expression was calm as she gently smoothed out my clenched fist. "Sincere, it's all resolved. I've made things clear with Ethan. He won't bother me anymore. From now on, we're just old classmates." Chapter 3. But I just looked at her with suspicion. I turned her by the shoulders to face me directly. "Then why didn't you come home last night? And what's going on now?" I noticed a slight frown on Victoria's face as she pulled away from my grasp. "Ethan was out in the rain last night and came down with a high fever. Since we're old classmates, I couldn't just leave him. I was just at the hospital with him, making sure he was okay. Nothing else happened. As for today, this is my surprise for you. You've been struggling to find investors for the cardiopulmonary technology you're developing, right? Well, Ethan knows a lot of influential people overseas and has great connections. I'm having him start as a secretary to get familiar with our workflow, which will make it easier for him to pitch to investors." Victoria answered all my questions, her reasoning so plausible it was hard not to be convinced. All in all, it was a somewhat satisfactory resolution. But Victoria gave me a playful push. "You and your soft spot for a pretty face. Don't worry, I'll transfer her to another department." That evening, Victoria threw a welcome party for Ethan. At first, I didn't think it was necessary. But Victoria argued that it was only right to welcome an old classmate to the company and that Ethan should be treated fairly. Besides, things had been tense between Ethan and me yesterday, and this was a good chance to bury the hatchet. By the time I arrived, everyone was already drinking and celebrating. Victoria was standing very close to Ethan. He must have said something funny, because she was laughing uncontrollably. Just then my phone rang. It was Rebecca. "Mr. Clark, could you come back to the office? There's a problem with the cardiopulmonary technology project." I told a colleague at the door I had to leave and rushed back to the company. My mother died of pulmonary heart disease, a pain I've carried with me ever since. After she passed away, my father remarried and brought home a stepsister 2 years younger than me. Overwhelmed with grief and anger, I cut ties with my family and started my own business, focusing my research on cardiopulmonary technology. It was then that I met Victoria. Her family business had just gone bankrupt and was on the brink of collapse. She invested all her remaining funds into my venture, and I helped her save her company. We built everything we have now, step by step. Thinking of this, a warmth spread through my heart. Ethan would just be a small hiccup in our marriage. Victoria and I would continue on together. When I finished up at the office and hurried back to the restaurant, Victoria was gone. Everyone was happy and drunk, and no one could remember when she had left. I asked the manager for the security footage. As I watched it, second by second, my heart sank. Right after I left the first time, Victoria had laughed so hard at one of Ethan's jokes that she fell into his arms. Then, while everyone was raising their glasses, they were kissing shamelessly in a corner. They kissed all the way out of the private room, got into a taxi, and sped away. With trembling hands, I took out my phone. It took several tries to dial the number correctly. I practically gritted my teeth as I forced out a single word to the private investigator: "Find them." The private investigator was fast. It wasn't long before he sent me the hotel name and room number. I rushed to the hotel, found the room, took a deep breath, and knocked on the door. The sounds from inside stopped, followed by a soft curse. Ethan, with only a towel wrapped around his waist, opened the door. When he saw it was me, he quickly tried to shut it. I blocked the door and threw a punch. Ethan fell to the ground. Victoria screamed. Seeing it was me, she quickly threw on some clothes and tried to intervene. I was on top of Ethan, mechanically hitting him again and again. Victoria cried and begged me to stop, getting pushed to the floor and crawling back each time. To protect Ethan, she called the police. As the police were taking me away, I asked her, my last hope fading, "So you do still love him? You were willing to lie to me, to bring him into the company just so you could see him every day, right?" Victoria held on to Ethan and said to me coldly, "Sincere Clark, he's not someone you can touch. Don't push your luck. You're nothing but a dog I sponsored, only fit to stay at home and wag your tail obediently." Chapter 4. It was a scandal after all, and Victoria didn't want to make it a huge public mess. In the end, I was only detained for 3 days before being released. When I was released, Victoria was there to pick me up. Seeing my disheveled state, her eyes immediately reddened. "Sincere, did we really have to end up like this? Let me guess. Are you afraid that divorcing me will mean splitting the company's assets, or is it because you and that waste, Ethan, can't handle the company on your own?" My words made Victoria shed a few tears, and she grabbed onto me tightly. "Sincere, what are you saying? We can't get a divorce. I can explain everything. I did some things wrong, but I really do still love you. Sincere, don't you love me anymore?" One by one, I pried her fingers off me. "I made the mistake of trusting you once, but there won't be a second time in this lifetime." When I got back to the company, Ethan was in my office, legs crossed, snacking on sunflower seeds. The bruises on his face hadn't healed, covered in bandages, yet he still had the nerve to be eyeing my things. Perhaps the shock I gave him was too strong, because the moment Ethan saw me, he instinctively shot up and stood to the side. I ignored him and started gathering the files on my desk related to the cardiopulmonary technology. Ethan, realizing how pathetic he had just looked, started to provoke me. "Sincere, don't get cocky. This office will be mine sooner or later. Vicky only has me in her heart. I'd advise you to be smart and leave quietly." This idiot. Did he really think that the Vance Corporation, which was on the verge of collapse before he left the country, could be saved by Victoria alone? But he didn't need to know that. I'd let him live in his daydream for a few more days. I finished gathering my files and looked at him mockingly. But Vicky was just begging me not to divorce her. She said you were just a mistake she made. On my way out, I ran into Rebecca and told her I was planning to leave. She was smart and diligent, someone I had mentored from the beginning. "Boss, thank you for everything you've taught me." I smiled at her. "See you around." Rebecca nodded with tears in her eyes, then suddenly looked up at me. "But boss, what about our cardiopulmonary technology? I was hoping it could save my mom's life." That was a good reminder. The research was at a critical stage and couldn't be stopped because of Victoria, but there was no way I could stay at Vance Corporation. I gritted my teeth, having already made a decision. I then asked Rebecca, "I have a new opportunity. Would you consider coming with me?" Back home, I had to mentally prepare myself for a long time before finally making the call. On the other end, Claire Clark picked up. There was a long pause before she stammered, Are you Sincere Clark? Brother?" "Yes." Another long pause from Claire, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. "Brother, I'm really not his illegitimate daughter. We're not related by blood. Please don't be angry with Dad anymore. Come home. I can't lead the company at all." The Clark Corporation was involved in various industries, deeply rooted and complex. It was indeed too much to ask Claire to lead such a massive company. I had actually found out a year ago that Claire wasn't an illegitimate child, but at the time my entire focus was on Victoria. It didn't matter now. The fact that my father had remarried so quickly after my mother's death was still a thorn in my side. But now I had to pull out that thorn. In the end, the Clark Corporation was all I could rely on. "Claire, I'll come back to help you, but first, I need you to do a favor for your brother. I need the corporation to set up a branch in City A for medical research." Chapter 5. By the time I finished discussing things with Claire, it was already dark. I had planned to just pack a few of my things and leave. But just as I opened my suitcase, Victoria came back. She threw herself on my suitcase like a madwoman, stopping me from packing. "Sincere, you're joking, right? You can't really leave me, what else? If I don't leave, how will I make room for your precious Ethan?" Victoria thought for a long time before speaking, her voice hoarse. "Sincere, are you disappointed in me?" I didn't know how to answer. Her audacity was beyond anything I could comprehend. "Sincere, I've really thought things through these past few days. My feelings for Ethan are just a habit. I just couldn't let him go right away. Sincere, please don't leave me, okay? I want to be with you forever, can't I? I've really changed. Let's live a good life together, just like before, so happy. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" Her words were just laughable to me. I quietly recorded what she said and sent it to Ethan. A moment later, Ethan's call came through. Victoria frantically gathered her things, ready to rush out. I sat on the sofa, watching her with amusement. "Victoria, if you walk out that door, you won't see me when you get back." She hesitated, then actually gritted her teeth and sat back down beside me. "See, Sincere? I've really changed." Victoria stopped going to work, staying at home all day, afraid that if she looked away for a second, I'd be gone when she got back. I decided to play along, handling the branch company's affairs remotely from home while also contacting a lawyer to draft the divorce agreement. This situation didn't last for more than a few days. When the news came that Ethan had taken sleeping pills, Victoria finally made up her mind and left. I moved out of that house. Rebecca helped me find a rental near her place. I had originally planned to stay at the hotel Claire arranged for me, but Rebecca thought I had nowhere to go and was so busy helping me that I didn't have the heart to refuse. It was also convenient for contacting Rebecca about company matters. I packed my things overnight. After the long standoff with Victoria and the move, my head felt a bit foggy. While scrolling through my phone after packing, I saw a new post from Victoria on her social media. The picture was of her holding a hand with an IV drip in it. It seemed Ethan had been successfully revived. She had added a caption, "After everything, it's always been you." She even added a heart emoji at the end. The words were so sincere I almost forgot that just a day ago, she was professing her undying love for me, saying she couldn't be apart from me. Just then, I heard Rebecca's voice from outside the door. "Boss, are you asleep?" "I made some pear soup for you to try." I quickly got up to open the door for her, but my vision went black, and I collapsed on the floor. When I woke up again, everything was white. I was in the hospital. I wiggled my fingers, and Rebecca, who was dozing beside me, stirred and opened her eyes. She still looked groggy from sleep, but her face quickly broke into a smile. "Boss, you scared me to death. You were out for a whole day and night. Now that you're awake, we need to get you properly checked out. I chuckled. It's nothing, just been too tired lately. But Rebecca was firm, saying that she hadn't paid enough attention to her own mother's health, which is why they missed the best time for treatment. And so, I was dragged through a series of tests, blood work, x-rays, heart rate, blood pressure, everything. Rebecca went to get my results. Feeling stuffy in the room, I took my IV stand and went outside for some fresh air. Sincere? I turned around. It was Victoria and Ethan. Victoria was helping Ethan take a walk. When she saw me in a hospital gown with an IV, she immediately let go of him and ran to my side. Sincere, what happened to you? Why are you like this? In the distance, Ethan's face darkened instantly. I smirked, not answering her, and looked provocatively at Ethan. He would help me get rid of this annoying fly, Victoria. He didn't disappoint. He let out a groan and collapsed straight onto the ground. Victoria rushed over to him, shouting for help to get him back to his room. Chapter 6. Rebecca came back with the test results. All my vitals were fine, it was just low blood sugar. Victoria somehow found my hospital room. She was stunned to see Rebecca at first, then quickly lowered her gaze. She hesitated at the door for a long time before coming in, holding a piece of paper. As if having made a huge decision, she finally handed the paper to me. I'm sorry, Sincere. Let's get a divorce. It seemed my provocation had worked on Ethan, and he had finally lost his patience. The divorce agreement she handed me was practically a tyrant's contract. Of the 40% of the company that was rightfully mine, she had only allocated 5% to me, not to mention the house, cars, cash, and everything else. I looked at Victoria with disappointment. Victoria, I thought there was at least a shred of genuine feeling between us, but this agreement is a huge letdown. Have you forgotten that I have proof of your affair? I can sue for divorce directly. If it comes to that, you won't even get to keep half of the assets. Victoria seemed to have expected me to say this. Her expression didn't change, except for a barely perceptible hint of guilt. Just then, Ethan arrived, looking smug and arrogant, nothing like a patient who had just swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills. Ethan gently put his arm around Victoria, intertwining their fingers as if making a declaration to me, but nobody cared. Since Vicky is too soft-hearted, I guess I'll have to be the bad guy. Sincere, don't forget, the copyright for that cardiopulmonary technology you're so obsessed with is still owned by Vance Corporation. As long as you obediently sign this divorce agreement, I promise not to give you any trouble over the copyright. I clenched my fists. They dared to threaten me with this. I had given my all to bring Vance Corporation back from the dead. As a partner and a top executive, I was entitled to half the shares, but the company was unstable back then. To give Victoria more authority and control, I voluntarily gave up the shares that should have been mine. I only took 40%, letting Victoria hold a majority and become the true CEO of Vance. I never thought I was digging my own grave. But I don't regret that decision. I only blame myself for being blind and trusting the wrong person. But the cardiopulmonary technology was like my child. Victoria couldn't possibly not know that, yet she told Ethan about it. Is this your idea? I looked at Victoria. She couldn't meet my eyes, biting her lip and nodding slightly. Ethan continued his tirade. Sincere, I'm sure you don't want to see your life's work go to waste. And with your abilities, Mr. Clark, I'm sure it won't be a problem for you to earn back this money in no time. Why don't you just sign the agreement? Just consider it an early wedding gift from me and Vicky. His smug, triumphant face made me want to punch him. That's enough. Rebecca stepped in to stop him. The usually quiet and timid girl stood up, shielding me. She spoke coldly to Victoria. Ms. Vance, you don't know, do you? Mr. Clark is in the hospital for a lung condition. This technology could save his life. Are you really going to use it as a bargaining chip against him? Rebecca looked so serious, her words so convincing, that I almost laughed. But then I felt a wave of desolation. Such a clumsy lie could never awaken Victoria's conscience. After hearing Rebecca's words, Victoria's expression softened slightly. Ethan quickly whispered in her ear, Vicky, don't be foolish. Even if we give him the copyright, he's made no progress for years. Do you really think he can get it done anytime soon? And even if he wants it, we're giving him a chance. Let him trade the agreement for it. You're thinking about Sincere, but has he ever thought about you? All these years of your inner turmoil and struggles, only I understand. Besides, look how quickly he's gotten close to Rebecca Jones. Who's to say they weren't already together behind your back? Chapter 7. Victoria was swayed. Her eyes gradually grew cold. Sincere, if you really need this technology so badly, then you should sign. Rebecca was so angry at their words that she turned pale and trembled. I motioned for Rebecca to relax and spoke in a deep voice. Let's not talk anymore, I'll sign. I had no more energy to get entangled with these two. It was better to get it over with. Ethan pressed his advantage. Vicky, we can finally be together properly. I think Sincere is only agreeing so he can marry Rebecca Jones sooner. Vicky, I'm the only one who truly loves you. Victoria ignored him, staring at me in disbelief. Sincere, is what he's saying true? You and Rebecca. I stood up, shielding Rebecca, and quickly signed the divorce agreement, throwing it in their faces. Take it and get out. Otherwise, I can't guarantee I won't suddenly change my mind. Money? I wasn't short on it. Besides, these things were just being held by them temporarily. I had my own ways of getting them back. During my time in the hospital, I contacted doctors and visited several cardiology and pulmonology wards. These clinical cases gave me a lot of inspiration. After being discharged, I threw myself into my research. During this period, things were not going well for Victoria. The investor resources Ethan claimed to have abroad were nothing more than fair weather friends. The private investigator sent me a full report on Ethan's years abroad. It turned out there was another reason he had abandoned Victoria so decisively back then. While he was with Victoria, he had already been involved with a Miss Davis. He had traded core data from Victoria's company to establish a partnership with the Davis family, making a fortune. He fled the country for 4 years to avoid getting caught. This was the root cause of why Vance Corporation almost went bankrupt in the first place. Abroad, Ethan was a good-for-nothing, dating countless women and living a debauched life. He almost failed to get his degree, only managing to graduate after paying a large sum of money. He quickly spent all his money and, after hearing that Vance Corporation was growing stronger, decided to return to the country. Unfortunately for Ethan, he miscalculated. Vance Corporation wouldn't always be so lucky. Without me, it was in decline. Now, in the hands of this good-for-nothing parasite, it was nothing more than a soulless shell. Not to mention, I had been giving it a few pushes from the shadows. Seeing the situation, Gregory and Eleanor Vance couldn't help but want to step in. They had always looked down on me, believing I had no connections or background, and that my minor successes were all thanks to their funding. It was only later that I found out that Victoria's parents had played a part in getting her and Ethan together. They always thought Ethan, the overseas returnee, was exceptionally brilliant. They believed his nonsense and belittled me at every turn. But Gregory and Eleanor were ultimately out of touch and had no idea how to run the company. Then again, if they had any real ability, they wouldn't have let Vance Corporation fall into near bankruptcy in the first place. There was also an unexpected bonus. The Clark Corporation's branch in City A was founded in Claire's name. Somehow Ethan got wind of this and started trying to get close to Claire. Claire, who was abroad, was shocked to receive an invitation to dinner from Ethan. I didn't send the information I had to Victoria, but her marriage was already on the rocks. After I left, her series of bad decisions had turned the company into an empty shell. Ethan blamed everything on Victoria and even started physically abusing her. Chapter 8. When I got home, I saw a figure outside my door. Victoria was as thin as a skeleton, with bruises on her face. Seeing me return with Rebecca, her lips trembled uncontrollably. Sincere, are you two together? I ignored her and started to open the door to go home with Rebecca, but Victoria clung desperately to the doorframe. Sincere, are you happy now, seeing me like this? A smile twisted her lips, as out of place as her baseless accusation. But don't you worry, I'm not that easy to break. Ethan is the man I've wanted to marry since I was 18. He's just lost his way for a bit, but I believe he'll come to his senses. My marriage, my job, everything will get back on track. Without you, it won't affect me at all. Sincere, remember what I said? You're nothing but a dog I sponsored. I'm the one who threw you away. I asked Victoria to wait at the door for a moment, then went inside and rummaged around until I found the number for a mental hospital. Victoria thought I was giving her my contact information. She took it, tore it to shreds, and scattered it on the ground. As she was leaving, she said, "And that ridiculous research project of yours, without Vance Corp, who would ever back it?" I told her the truth. "The Clark Corporation has opened a branch here. You should start preparing for bankruptcy." Victoria laughed as if she'd heard a joke. "The Clark Corporation would bother with you? Don't be delusional. After the Clark Corporation branch was officially established, it quickly took over the medical market in City A. Victoria's company was on the verge of collapse. Many of her old clients had followed me and established partnerships with Clark. I was only taking back what was rightfully mine. I didn't push too hard or make things too difficult for Vance. The final straw that broke Vance Corporation was Ethan. He secretly embezzled the company's liquid assets and lost it all at a casino. The matter was exposed by the finance department. Because they still owed clients final payments, Victoria could no longer cover for him, and Ethan ended up in jail. Recently, Victoria had been trying to get Clark Corporation to acquire Vance. It was her last hope, but every time she came to the company to submit a letter of intent, she was turned away. At a charity gala hosted by Clark, Victoria managed to sneak in. I was with Rebecca, chatting with partners about market trends, when a voice came from the stage. Victoria was standing there straight, holding a microphone, her hand trembling slightly. She scanned the crowd below. "I don't know who Mr. Clark is, so I can only take this liberty to convey my thoughts to you. Please forgive me, Chapter 9. I raised my hand to stop the security guards who were about to go on stage and remove her. Victoria continued her speech. "Vance has been in the medical field for decades, with a wealth of experience. We are arguably the partner your company needs most. Vance is currently facing some difficulties, and we hope that the Clark Corporation can extend a helping hand and fulfill its social responsibility to assist. I have already prepared a letter of intent. Please, Mr. Clark, give me a chance and give Vance a chance." The entire hall fell silent. Everyone quietly watched Victoria's clown-like performance. While she was speaking, I had already walked onto the stage. "Ms. Vance, are you asking for a sponsorship from the Clark Corporation?" Victoria looked at me in surprise, not understanding why I was up there at that moment. "Sincere, you really don't give up, do you? Do you think showing up here will make Mr. Clark see you in a different light?" As she said this, she was waving at the security guards below, signaling them to take me away. The security guards looked at me, unsure of what to do. I shook my head at them, and one of them spoke loudly. "Yes, Mr. Clark, my apologies. My full name is Sincere Clark." I swirled the wine in my glass, looking down on her. Someone once told me that a sponsored person is like a dog that should obediently wag its tail to please its master. If I'm not mistaken, Ms. Vance's speech just now was a request for sponsorship from the Clark Corporation. "Ms. Vance, why don't you demonstrate how to wag your tail?" Laughter rippled through the crowd below, a sea of whispers. Victoria stood there, stunned, muttering, "This is impossible." She shook her head, backing away, then fled as if escaping. Later I heard that Victoria made inquiries everywhere to find out if I was really the head of Clark. After getting confirmation, she started camping out in front of my house every day. First it was just her, then Gregory and Eleanor Vance joined her. But they didn't know that I had already moved. This was largely thanks to the major breakthrough in my cardiopulmonary project. The respirator was quickly launched and swept the market. Clark Corporation's stock price hit a new high. With my own abilities, I delivered a perfect report card to the Clark family. With the bonus from that success, I was able to move to a villa in the suburbs. Being a generous boss, when I bought my villa, I also bought the one next door for Rebecca. Rebecca brought her mother home from the hospital. She had already recovered quite well. A month later, Vance Corporation declared bankruptcy. Victoria couldn't handle the blow and was admitted to a mental hospital, the very one I had recommended to her. If she had listened to me earlier, perhaps she wouldn't have gotten so sick. After all the twists and turns, life settled back into a peaceful calm. Outside the window, Rebecca was waving at me with a sweet smile.